information to share with you regarding the great train heists that we have been seeing in the last year or more in remote areas of Arizona. And it turns out there's a border connection to all of this because the suspects who are being arrested are, for the most part, in the country illegally. And if you haven't heard about some of these thefts that have been happening, just to bring you up to speed, in many cases, in some of the most recent cases, we're talking about very valuable Nike shoes that haven't even gone onto the market yet. So here's what we know so far. Thieves have been targeting these freight trains here in Arizona in a string of heists, resulting, as I say, in the theft of, they're saying the value of these new Nike shoes could be in the $2 million range. And yes, here in Arizona, it does turn out there is a border connection. So AP reporting that in the middle of January, just last month, the suspects cut an air brake hose on a BNSF freight train traveling through a remote part of our state and made off with a little under 2,000 pairs of unreleased Nikes worth more than $400,000. A lot of them were what are described as Nigel Sylvester X Air Jordan 4s. They're actually not going to even be available to the public until March the 14th, and they're expected to retail for more than $200. So you do the math on that. You have 1,900 pairs of these shoes stolen in a train heist at $225 a pair. That's how they come up to this large number. That's one of at least 10 heists targeting BNSF trains, Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad, been around for a long time. Authorities are investigating, and a lot of these reports are coming from the LA Times. It turns out that all but one of these heists resulted in the theft of Nike shoes. So I'm sure detectives, both locally and you would think, because it looks like there's an interstate commerce connection here, you would think federal investigators. There's been some talk about taking some of the FBI agents and moving them out of Washington and putting them into cities across America. Well, this would be a good one for the FBI to be investigating right here in our state. But they're making progress. This morning, we can report 11 people being arrested and charged with this particular case coming out of Arizona. Now, by the way, just to give you a glimpse, if you take a look at the red dots on this map, a lot of them are happening outside of Kingman, Hackberry, and Seligman. So those, if you've traveled especially old Route 66, you know that those can be some pretty quiet parts of our state. Not so much in downtown Kingman, but as you get out of town over towards Seligman, Hackberry as well. So one of the cases, it turns out that of the people that were arrested, 11 have now pled not guilty. They're ordered held over till trial. 10 of the 11 are Mexican nationals who managed somehow to get into our country illegally. Now, it's not clear if they did that over the course of the last few years when there was more of an open border policy, or if they managed to get into the country prior to that. By the way, the 11th is a Mexican citizen who was in, quote, asylum proceedings inside the United States. So we don't know how long. Some of those asylum proceedings can last for years before you actually get a court date. Anyhow, the suspects in that heist were caught with the help of tracking devices that were embedded in some of the boxes because, authorities finally were starting to get wind of what was going on. And in a brilliant case of detective work, they started to put those tracking devices in. By the way, in another case, back in November, the one around Hackberry, there was a train, and this was on November 20th. It started losing air. According to a complaint that was filed right here, right at the Phoenix Federal Court, sheriff's deputies doing a great job up in Mojave County. They stopped a white paneled van leaving the area, and they found 180 pairs of then unreleased Air Jordan 11 Retro Legend blue sneakers. Those alone valued at some $41,000. So just the way they're pulling it off, or at least they have been. And this is great reporting here. It's coming from the AP and also from the LA Times, but they're apparently these thieves, they scout the merchandise on the rail lines that move up and down along I-40. Then they actually hop on board slow-moving trains, like when they're changing tracks. This is according to Keith Lewis, who is a deputy sheriff here in Arizona and a VP of Verisk's Cargo Net. He actually said that the thieves are sometimes tipped off to valuable shipments by accomplices working at the warehouses or at the trucking company. So it sounds like it's a bigger network or a bigger ring than maybe people thought in the first place. So one more time, there's a look at the map where some of these have been happening. And these guys, when they pull these off, they're aided by accomplices in what they call follow vehicles that actually track the railroad cars. And then the stuff that's being stolen is tossed right off the train after it comes to a halt. Or because maybe an air hose has been cut. They're doing that kind of a thing as well. So that's a story that I think is going to be with us for a long time to come. And so far, it looks like great detective work. We hope to hear a lot more from either local law enforcement or federal investigators as it all goes on. On to our next story now, and it is pretty shocking. We have another skydiving death. This is the third being reported out of Eloy. The Pinal County Sheriff's Office says that the body of a 47-year-old man was found at near a skydiving facility out in that Eloy area, and this was just about 10 days ago, February 16th. You may remember it was January 24th that a 55-year-old woman died from a skydive fall in Eloy. Apparently, her parachute did not fully deploy. But then, or actually it did. It fully deployed, but there were some sort of complications when she was coming down. And then back in February 1st, there was a guy out of Gilbert who jumped with a wingsuit, but his parachute did not deploy. The FAA is on the case. And Syleste joins as well. Good morning, Syleste.
Good morning, Ron.
Good to have
morning,
you back.
everyone.
I don't
Thank
know.
you.
Remind me, have you ever jumped out of a plane?
I'm not as brave as you.
Oh, well. I don't know how brave I was. I kept saying to myself, once you jump, it can't be that long before you hit the ground.
Well, I'm one of those people that has that dream. Maybe out there in the chat box you can share. I have a dream that I'm falling. And it
Oh,
has been,
no.
I haven't had it in quite a while, but it has been recurring since I was young, since I
Oh,
was little.
okay.
And I remember that feeling I had like in the gut, like in your stomach, where you're,
Okay.
it feels like you left your stomach up there.
Yeah. Oh, that's the way
R-
it is.
Yeah,
Yes, correct.
that's
Yeah.
so
Is
that's
that
what
happening in your dream? Is that what you're
that
saying?
happens in
Okay.
my
Well, it
dream.
happens in real life. I'll just tell you.
And then I wake up right before I hit the ground.
Ooh,
And
wow.
so
Yeah.
I think I don't know what that means
Right.
or whatever, but you, my friend, you've done the real thing.
Yes, I did. It was for my 50th birthday. My wife Renee bought it for me, and she gave it to me as a surprise.
Hmm.
And my first reaction to it was, honey, shouldn't we have talked about this ahead of time?
And then
I don't think I'd ever said that I wanted to jump out of a plane.
she slid over the insurance
Yeah.
paperwork, the life insurance. She
Yeah.
said, "Honey, by the way, before
Right.
you head out, can you sign this
Correct.
paperwork,
Yeah,
please?"
I just have a few updates to the policy. Oh, for goodness
Oh my
sakes.
goodness! But there is kind of in a serious to take it back to like the serious situation because it
Yeah.
is heartbreaking that this has happened to
Oh,
multiple
yes.
people.
3 times now in a little over a month?
So you know this better than I do, but when you're out there, I've covered this a number of times in Eloy when they've had these skydiving festivals.
Yes.
I've been there live in the morning, and you find that there's like one guy or gal, one person primarily, who job is to fold the parachute. And I remember speaking to him, it was off camera,
Mhm.
and he said, "My job is so important because if
Oh,
it's not folded in a
yes.
certain way, there is like an art form to it,
Right.
then it doesn't open properly."
I actually asked the guy. It was a tandem. Anytime you go up and you jump out of a plane, the first of several are going to be tandem.
Uh-huh.
You're attached to another jumper. And I said, "How many jumps have you done?" And he said, "Over 8,000." And I thought,
Wow.
well, then my odds are pretty good. What are the odds I'm going to be that one jump out of 8,000? happen,
Yeah.
where the parachute's not going to deploy. But it is concerning that we've had three in just a matter of weeks. So they say the FAA is investigating, and I'm sure a lot of folks want to take a good hard look at what comes out of this investigation so
Yeah.
that these kind of deaths don't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. There's a few people. Is it says Angela Brockelman says having a dream when you're falling is so scary, and maybe you've had it. Actually, it is scary, especially if you hit the ground. Wake up or wake up right before you hit the ground. So it sounds like Angela's had that very same dream.
Ooh, yeah.
So many of you are kind of chiming in the chat box, and thank you so much for sharing with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, one other thing, Celeste. We have this story, this crazy story about the Walmart hit list. So investigators have made an arrest. They say that a young lady who was working at a Walmart, one up in the North Valley in the Cave Creek area there, they say that Keelan Pasco made a hit list. Apparently wrote it down. I don't know if she wrote it down on paper in her phone or what, but she had a bunch of coworkers at that particular Walmart she wanted to kill. And then while she was at it, she thought maybe she would try to kill a few people who worked at the restaurant where she used to be employed.
Yeah, and that's scary.
The whole thing.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
very frightening.
So who knows? The details will come out in court, but they're taking it really seriously. She's being held on a $50,000 bond. But on the list of the people she wanted dead, there were about 40 names on this list. And the thing is, you were just talking about dreams. Here's where it gets kind of spooky.
Yeah.
She said that she had been having a recurring dream about doing harm to her coworkers for the last 5 months.
If you have to make a list of
Yes.
40 coworkers,
Yeah.
just quit and find a new job.
Yeah, no
if
kidding.
if that isn't, maybe that's just not the place for you, hon.
No.
And that's okay.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
Celeste,
how many jobs, Ron? I was a telemarketer at one point in college
Oh,
for
yeah?
2 weeks.
Okay.
And I thought, I can't do this
Right.
anymore.
I think your advice, just there, go find another job, hon. Celeste is going to debut her own sort of Dear Abby segment here on future streaming shows on Fox 10 Talks.
Yeah.
Let's go to the mystery camp, because where do you guys think this would be? Ooh, a little bit of, no, at first I thought snow. That's a roof in need of repair.
I'm going to go like Massachusetts.
It looks very New Englandish. We'll be right back. In the chat box.
Yes.
Let's see. Mario Hernandez is in with a Virginia. What are some of the other things you're seeing, Celeste?
So I'm seeing.
Oh, I like Anthony, by the way. Looks
Yes.
very colonial-ish. So he's going
I
Massachusetts.
like the ish.
Yes,
You know.
colonial-ish.
So we have Elisa Dinsmore. Lisa, good morning, my friend. New England. Angela Brockelman says New Hampshire. We have
And
a few Massachusetts.
yeah, and by the way, to Anthony, just look that word up because you just created it. We congratulate you. If it's not in the dictionary right now, looks colonial-ish.
We're rooting for you for next year's 2025 dictionary editions.
Celeste, who was our commenter who said that he was also a telemarketer?
Oh,
Leo
yes.
Mack, right?
He said, I did telemarketing for Kirby Vacuum.
Oh, I bet he was in the #1 salesperson.
You know, here's the thing is that if you're a telemarketer, you got to believe in the product.
Yes, you do.
And, you know, maybe he got a vacuum.
Right.
Leo Mac, did you get a vacuum to try at home?
Hopefully.
I would do a telemarketing job for that vacuum. Or
Would
Dyson
you?
or
Okay.
one of those Shark fancy ones. But I was like a telemarketer for some other, I don't even remember what it was, but
Yeah.
it was a good gig. It paid me like $12 an hour.
Yes.
And then finally I thought, I'm tired of hearing people hanging up on me. I can't do this anymore.
Well, all right. We're glad you're here, Celeste.
Thank
It
you,
worked
Ron.
out for
I found my way, Ron.
for the stream. It worked out for the best. Just think of it that way. By the way, you're guessing Massachusetts.
Yes.
And I think now Brian, our director, says New Hampshire, and I think I'm going to go with Connecticut.
Connecticut. Okay,
Somewhere in New England. What do you got?
somewhere like in the northeast type area.
Yes, right. Our 6th favorite New England states.
yes.
What do you got?
Catskill, New York.
Oh, look at that.
whoa,
We were all close
Dino.
by, but not quite.
I don't think anybody got it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow, but you know, can we go back to it real quick, Ron?
Of course.
Okay, do you see how all of those homes are connected?
Yes.
It reminds me of some of like the Boston, you know, movies and you know what I mean? Like movies
Oh,
that are shot in
sure.
Boston type thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of those little towns like Lexington and Concord that are outside
yeah.
of Boston. They kind of look like that.
Is that where Concord jelly comes from?
I don't know,
Oh,
but it's
Leo.
where Paul Revere rode his horse to.
Oh, really?
One if by land, two if by sea,
Paul
and I
Revere.
on the opposite shore will be.
That is the name of a Beastie Boys song, I think, Paul Revere.
Take a look at this live picture coming in from Washington, D.C. The midnight deadline is come and gone for federal workers to list 5 things they did in the last week or their jobs might be in jeopardy. Thing is, a bunch of agencies like Kash Patel running the FBI, he told his folks don't respond. The DOD, that's Pete Hegseth over there, said basically don't respond. Even Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, Director of National Intelligence, said don't respond. And so the thing is that Elon Musk is still has the full backing of President Trump. He actually said yesterday to the White House, he thought it was kind of, the word he used was genius. But I heard a quote from one Democrat who said, did the president even know that Elon Musk was going to send out that email? And he said, what's going on is crazy. So we haven't heard about any level at all of mass firings as a result, because in that second post that Musk did, he said, you have to respond to this one or it will be your termination. But there wasn't a specific deadline.
And I wonder what were the expectations when it came to what type of tasks they were expected to explain. So was
Yeah.
it just I wrote this inner office memo? Was it I, refilled the water at the water cooler?
Yes.
I made lots of copies at the fax machine.
I like how
What
you
was
tried to
it?
put the pressure on me on the morning show this morning.
know.
Snap, come up with 5 things you did. Well, I do about 8 different jobs just for this streaming show.
I
for
know,
goodness
Ron,
sakes,
you're
but
so amazing. And let's hear it for Ron in the chat box, people. If we had like a live studio audience that
yeah.
we could go like this, you know what I mean?
Took a little sip there from my Buc-ee's cup. All right, here's the story, Celeste. These cutbacks at the Park Service are having an impact on Arizona. We reported last week that there were extremely long lines for people trying to get into the Grand Canyon. And then this morning we reported that Saguaro National Park has to close its visitor center one day of the week, Mondays, in response to the cuts. Now, we don't know how many people lost their jobs at the Saguaro National Park. We also don't know how many people specifically lost their jobs at the Grand Canyon.
Right.
We do know that 20,000 people work for the Park Service, and the reported number of job cuts were going to be somewhere in the area of around 1,000. So we're talking about 5% overall of the workforce. So our poll question this morning has to do with all of that. And so are you okay with the DOGE job cuts at the parks, even if it means closures like we're now seeing down at that national park outside of Tucson, or long lines? We may read your responses on the air. 51% right now are saying, you know what? Yes, I'm still okay with it. Every agency needs to be part of this these spending cuts. 23% say no. They ought to be able to handle some cuts. And again, we don't know at any individual park if we're talking about 5%
Right.
or 10%.
We don't have the details
Correct.
on that.
But they ought to be able to handle some cuts and still stay open. You know, that would be like how you would move your schedule around, that kind of a thing. And then 26% say DOGE just needs to stop. No more job cuts at all.
Yes. So interesting, I think, and maybe you guys can all, chime in the chat box on this, but there are some concerns with the National Park Service because they help care for the parks.
Sure.
Here's the thought, though, on that Monday, maybe they should still, maybe the park is closed to visitors, and so you have some people that aren't working.
Yeah.
But maybe that's an opportunity for people to clean up the park. Or, nobody's in there. Nobody's there.
That's a really good point that's not being talked about. But when I did some research for this, there are, I believe the number is well in excess of 100,000 volunteers who do volunteer their time at the park. And so that might be,
Maybe
that
that's
might
the
be
day.
part of the equation.
Yeah.
By the way, the administration has said it plans to restore some of the jobs terminated at the Park Service and hire some 3,000 seasonal workers. You know, the busy time of year is late spring, and as we head into summertime. Celeste.
Yes, Ron.
We are going, by the way, already 122 votes on that issue. Let's go live at Sky Harbor Airport. They run such a great operation there. I do think that we're getting toward, springtime gets to be about the busiest time, what with spring training and everything. So you got one plane on the runway taking off right there.
Okay.
A second is just making the turn, and it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 more lined up, and another one coming. As I just love to watch these takeoffs. Aviation is still super duper safe.
Absolutely.
But we keep getting these reports of problems on board. In a number of cases, they're the smaller aircraft. They're not the really big ones. But did you see what happened yesterday in Atlanta? So these are the pictures as they managed to get off. They opened the emergency exit. Look, they came down the slide. And this was one of those smaller planes. Look, there's a businessman. He's calm as could be.
And there's people walking on the wing of the aircraft.
Yeah, I saw that too. Because if you're out there look, there they are right there. You're getting out of the, look, some people are going fast. Oh, there was somebody coming down the slide, but here's why. Now, we need a full explanation from Delta Airlines just to give us some platitude like, well, our customer safety is our top priority. That ain't going to cut it.
Yeah, right.
You need to come forward and say, how could that be? Look at that. I mean, it was only 12 minutes and the pilot said, we're turning around. We're going to go back for a landing. And look how calm everybody's staying in that smoke-filled cabin.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
That is 100% unacceptable. And I like to fly Delta. But they need to explain what is going on that caused that situation. As I say, it was a smaller plane. It was a Boeing 717. Last week, you remember in Canada, there was a Delta flight that flipped upside down. That was also a smaller plane. I believe that was a CRJ. Miraculously, everybody on that flight survive thanks to the good work that was being done. But come on, Delta.
Can we go back to that Sky Harbor shot, Ron, real quick? And let me share this story. This is going viral this morning, and it was on Fox LA. This Florida woman took it upon herself to bless, she's on JetBlue. She blessed the 2 planes that she was traveling on with like a holy oil. And she put a little cross next to the plane as she's boarding on JetBlue, and she says, "In Jesus' name, amen."
Okay.
And
how'd they do on that flight?
And they did just fine.
Oh, okay.
And she's it's all over social media. It's on TikTok. She posted, Desiree Salter is one of the women's names. She posted, this woman got video of this other woman anointing the plane.
Yeah.
And here's another thought for you.
All right.
You have women like that. You have the situation on Delta. Yesterday, my daughter and I are flying home from the Central Valley. Valley of
Yeah.
California.
We're on a little plane.
And it was smaller, not a huge jet.
All right.
But there was a woman in front of my daughter who started crying
Yeah.
as she was boarding the plane.
Uh-oh.
And then she said, I can't do this. And she ran off.
Really?
So there are situations,
Yes,
I
it is
think.
impacting people's
It is as much
decisions.
as much as we say, it is the safest form of transportation when you look at the statistics.
Right.
But for some people, it's still frightening.
It reminds me of the time I was at Disneyland and I was getting ready to ride the Matterhorn.
Okay.
And some guy.
Nice analogy, Ron.
No, you'll see. Some guy hops out of the log, snaps his seatbelt right before they go in. Everything had to stop for a minute. It's like,
oh, no.
I'm not going in that mountain.
Well,
guess what? They have a 100% survival rate at the Matterhorn.
Well, especially if you keep your
Come on.
seatbelt on.
Right?
That's a ticket.
I thought, that's pretty late in the game to have a panic attack.
This is the one that has like the scary, abominable snowman inside, right?
Oh, maybe that's it. If you have what is that snowmanophobia called when you're afraid of the abominable snowman?
I don't remember, but it is quite frightening.
Celeste, one last story here before we say our goodbyes. Moms are so busy that...
Okay, Ron.
A new study shows they're working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs, maybe a little bit more.
Okay, are you ready for the soapbox? Is this when we go to a full hour like everybody's been asking for in the
I
chat
know.
box?
Actually, I should probably save this for tomorrow because I bet we have a lot of moms who are watching.
Yeah,
who
on
are
the chat
big fans
box. Yeah, okay,
of the stream. But
let's start it today, and then we'll finish it
all right,
tomorrow.
to be continued. So here's this study did come out. Now, it was done by Welch's. Aren't they the grape juice people?
And they have a jelly.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah, they have like PB&J.
They found that American moms work an average of 98 hours a week. Here's how they came up with it. They said that a typical mom's day starts at 6:30 a.m.
Okay.
And by the way, the grandkids are over at our place this week, and I know that's almost exactly when the first one of them wakes up. Is it about 6:30?
Hello, Pop-Pop.
And yes, and then moms in their day around 8:30 in the evening. That sounds pretty typical. And if you do the math, that's 58% of all hours in the work week.
Yes.
What with all the jobs moms do. So we salute you. And maybe we can come back and revisit that topic tomorrow. Save your comments. 10 seconds left in our show. Celeste, if you can believe it, you have one last comment you want to work in real quick?
Welcome to Kim Wynette, her first day in the chat box.
Sweet. But now we need to say goodbye.
Have a great morning. See you tomorrow.